Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Friday, November 13th, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Missouri started the week talking about playing Georgia on Saturday, but the game was called off at midweek because of positive COVID-19 tests, contact tracing, and players in quarantine at Missouri. Turned out they didn't have enough defensive linemen to play the game this weekend. It's one of 4 SEC games that won't be played on Saturday, and the number of postponed or canceled games throughout college football this weekend continued to rise on Friday. But that doesn't mean we can't talk Mizzou. Beat writer Souichi Terada stops by to discuss all things Tigers, from the football scheduling options to basketball prospects. Hoop season begins in less than 2 weeks, so let's get going talking Missouri sports with Souichi Terada.
Well, Souichi, I am really looking forward to tomorrow's game, 11 a.m. kickoff, Missouri and wait a second. It's not going to happen. One of 4 SEC games to get postponed for the weekend, and then one, I don't know how many, a lot of them in college football overall. The last count I saw was 11. They seem to be adding postponed games every day in the sport. But for Missouri, it's I was really looking forward to seeing them play Georgia. I didn't know what to expect in this game. I didn't know what was the line. Did you see an opening line in this?
Yeah, so it actually opened at around, I think, like 9 points, but it jumped up to like 12, 13. It might have been 14 by the time things shut down. So it was creeping up, if anything.
Okay, maybe the idea there was Georgia would be angry coming off the Florida game, or I don't know. But anyway, it would have been fun. It would have been a good test for Eli Drinkwitz's team. I know that the Tigers wanted an opportunity to kind of wipe the bad taste from their mouths of the previous game that they had played against the Gators. So where do they go from here? First of all, let's talk about the idea of maybe playing the game later in the schedule. Missouri's got 4 games over the next 4 weeks, so it's not happening then. Is there a chance that this game could get tacked on to the end of the schedule and be played on December 19th?
Yeah, that's kind of been the plan. And interestingly enough, when the Mizzou-Vandy game got canceled however many weeks ago, in mid-October that was, Jim Sturck actually mentioned December 19th as kind of this potential day, just because we didn't know how the rest of the SEC was going to look. So, yeah, and Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, mentioned it as well. And I think that's probably the next move. If Blair, I don't know how much you've seen of it, but there's been maybe some chatter a little bit about postponing the college football playoffs altogether. I don't know how. At what point we are there, but there's a lot of options. I think December 19th, though, is one of those dates that logistically makes sense, just because Mizzou already has the December 12th date against Vanderbilt from a previous postponement. So I think you're feeling okay about that, just because Georgia probably is out of the SEC East race. They no longer control their destiny. They need Florida to lose 2 more times the rest of the which I don't think is happening, because the Gators look pretty good. So I think logistically you can make it happen. I don't know how far along they are, but it does feel like it makes sense. Which you know what, in the COVID-19 pandemic, that's kind of been the thing. Like, if it makes sense, leagues and teams have done it. So hopefully we're looking at that in a few weeks here.
Yeah, there's no better example of seeing a sports schedule adjusted than this weekend. As I'm after finish taping our podcast, I will continue watching the Masters. The second round of the Masters. Here we are in mid-November. But yeah, you're right. It was Bob Bowlesby, the Big 12 commissioner, who said on Sirius Radio that there has been. He's on the College Football Playoff Committee, and there has been some discussion about postponing. Although Bill Hancock, friend of the show, longtime friend of the show, actually, Bill Hancock, the College Football Playoff Executive Director, said that there has been strong sentiment among the commissioners to play the games as scheduled. But as you said, Souichi, this has been a year of adjustment for everybody, for every sport, and we'll have to see if it's possible. The reason, listen, if the SEC keeps its championship game on December 19th, the reason that Missouri and Georgia could possibly play that day is the Bulldogs don't appear to be in good shape to represent the East in the SEC championship game after losing to Florida, standing a full game behind the Gators in the SEC standing, and now having lost the tiebreaker to Florida. So, hey, in this particular instance, the first postponement, the one against Vanderbilt for Mizzou, that was a Vanderbilt issue. This time, it's a Missouri issue. Take us through what we've learned this week about the Tigers and COVID-19.
Yeah, so like you said, Blair, the Vandy game had to be postponed because the Commodores fell below the 53-player minimum that the SEC mandated. So essentially, before the season, the SEC, for any reasons, whether it be postponement or even a no contest, which I think we're inching toward, you needed either a 53-man player minimum, scholarship player minimum, or 3 positional requirements, and that's at least 1 quarterback, 4 defensive linemen, and 9 offensive linemen. And for Mizzou's case this weekend, the Tigers actually fell below at the we can say this because Jim Sturck said it on the Paul Feinbaum show, but Mizzou fell below the defensive line position for the positional mark. So I believe they had 3 defensive linemen, scholarship defensive linemen available. So that's why they couldn't play. So the kind of the interesting thing here, Blair, is that this isn't an outbreak where it should be a long-term thing. I think a lot of fans and pundits and everybody was kind of like, what happens to the Mizzou South Carolina game on November 21st? But we don't, or I guess Mizzou and Drinkwitz and people within that program aren't too worried about that game, just because they've actually only had 2 positive COVID-19 cases. And so from this Sunday's round of testing, there was 1, and then from this Tuesday's round of testing, there was 1 more. So it's only 2 positive cases. This isn't like Florida where Dan Mullen, in mid-October test positive and more than 24 players test positive. That was an actual outbreak. So they actually had to shut down facilities and all that kind of stuff. Whereas with Mizzou, they only have 2 positives, and they anticipate having that defensive line position back and healthy and ready to go for the November 21st game. So they're, not all postponements are made the same. Obviously, you don't want to have them, but in Mizzou's case, I think you feel maybe a little bit more optimistic compared to some other programs.
Right. So this will end up being the second, I think this is right, the second open week for Missouri during the season. The Vanderbilt game would have been the first open week. And so, listen, in addition to having players get healthy from the virus, they also get to heal some injuries here too, don't they? I mean, there are some, I don't know, I don't want to, everybody wanted to see football this weekend, but without it, there were still an advantage or two. You get your players an extra week of rest, you get some guys healed up, you get an extra week of scouting on your next opponent, which is South Carolina. A team can make the most of this, I would think.
Yeah, it was kind of, especially on those offensive and defensive lines, Mizzou was actually kind of struggling with numbers to begin with. Drinkwitz said last week that they were up to 9 offensive linemen, and the SEC minimum is 7. So they were right up against it without any COVID-19 effects. So, and that was because of injuries, opt-outs, transfers, all that kind of stuff. So, but Mizzou was really kind of beat up there on the offensive line. Right tackle Larry Borum, who's been great this year, he's a little bit banged up, and he likely will be out for a few more weeks. Left guard Xavier Delgado was going to be out for Saturday's game, and interestingly enough, Blair, from the suspensions, his backup, Dylan Spencer, was going to be suspended for the first half for the Florida fight. So Mizzou was going to be on his 3rd left guard of the season. And so you probably didn't feel great about that. So anything that Mizzou maybe can, just heal up and everything and just feel maybe a little bit better about that position, you feel you feel much better about it. And the defensive line as well, Kobe Whiteside and Darius Robinson haven't played since the Tennessee game. So giving them another week to just heal up always helps.
Yeah, and like I said, I mentioned there's a scouting opportunity here because South Carolina, Ole Miss is one of 3 games that is supposed to happen on Saturday, along with Arkansas, Florida, and Vanderbilt, Kentucky. So, and South Carolina really needs to get things turned around. They've had a couple of ugly losses the previous 2 weeks after having a nice victory over Auburn earlier this year. So, So let's, with 5 games in the book, everybody in the SEC has played either 5 or 6 games. So we're either teams are halfway or beyond halfway home on their schedule. It's an opportunity to draw some conclusions, I think, about the first half of the Eli Drinkwitz era at Mizzou, and as odd as the season is, as disjointed as things are, I would think that, generally speaking, Missouri fans should be, needle pointing positively on Eli Drinkwitz's first half of his first season. Do you agree?
Absolutely, Blair. It's maybe a little bit, maybe frustrating is not the right word, but kind of weird because we were at the midway point of the season last week too. So I wrote my big 5 games midway point assessing everything story last week. So I can't do that this week because obviously nothing has happened since then. So, but yeah, I think you feel great if you're a Mizzou fan. The first 6 games of the season, including Georgia, we now know they were underdogs in. So coming out of it 2-3 for the first 5 games, I think is a very good testament of where maybe there's a little bit more talent, there's a little bit better coaching than people thought they had. I believe I went back and looked. The over/under for the season for win totals was 2.5. You still have Vanderbilt on your schedule. You're probably going to go over. So I think, 5-5 is looking like a real possibility. Finish strong. 6-4 is even, is very much so on the table depending on where these teams are at. But the schedule really eases up, the next 4 games, especially with Georgia postponed, because you got, like you said, Blair, South Carolina team that's reeling. You have an Arkansas game, which I think is going to be a lot of fun with Barry Odom's return to Faurot Field and Columbia. So that should be pretty exciting. And then you have Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, who, as it looks right now, are kind of on their own tier of miserableness in the SEC. So like I alluded to, 500, I think 5-5 is very much so on the table, and you feel pretty good about it at this point.
The only team of the 4 that you mentioned, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and Vandy, that is not under 500 right now is Arkansas, which is having a really nice year under Sam Pittman, the new coach. They are 3-3. The Gamecocks are 2-4. Mississippi State 2-4, and Vandy 0-5 in what I think will end up being the last year for Derek Mason. We'll have to see about that. But I agree. I think that if things fall the way that I think they should be expected to fall, based on betting lines and who we expect to win, based on perception, this is a team. I think if they don't win 3 of these 4, I'd be kind of disappointed. I think, and 4-4 is certainly not out of the realm, especially with the Arkansas game is going to be in Columbia now. That was a game that was going to be at Arrowhead Stadium originally. It's going to be at Columbia. I don't know what home field means this year, but it is at home. So Arkansas, Vandy would be in Columbia, Missouri, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, and Mississippi State on the road as well. So. Okay, Souichi, let's take a break here, and when we come back, let's switch topics to Missouri basketball.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
We're back with Souichi Terada, who covers Missouri for the Kansas City Star, and there was a pretty dramatic moment in Missouri basketball on Thursday night, an event that should take no more than 1.5 seconds to complete actually needed a half an hour to unveil itself. So tell us what happened with Missouri on Thursday night, Conzo Martin's team.
Yeah, It was kind of a fun thing, right? The first thing, I don't think if you told people, "Hey, wait 30 minutes for a coin flip," they would have been excited. But it was
Right.
the premise of it was pretty cool though. And then Mizzou and Illinois, they wanted to do bragging rights, unlike Mizzou KU for Border War. And the situations are obviously a little different there with contracts and everything like that. But Mizzou and Illinois, they wanted to get bragging rights done and ready, so they said, "Hey, let's do a coin flip to see who will host." And kind of for the sake of neutrality, they said there won't be any fans; it would just be family allowed in the game. So I thought that was pretty cool. Mizzou, won the coin toss. I guess it was kind of funny because I was watching it live, and I could kind of tell Mizzou had won because you could see like a flash of orange when Andy Katz he did the coin flip, and then he did the little flip thing with your hand. So when he was doing the, putting it on the back of his palm, you could kind of see the orange already. So I was like, okay, Mizzou got it. So I was like maybe I was a step or two quicker on my tweet in 2020 here.
You broke the story is what you're saying.
Yeah, my eyesight isn't great. But I could at least see the orange that I knew was going to be on the back. So, yes, but that's a nice non-conference game pickup for Mizzou. Really, you get number 8 Illinois at home, so that's really a chance for a quadrant 1 win if we're talking. We're already projecting NCAA tournament hopes. So it was kind of like you said, Blair. I was on the edge of my seat for a whole 30 minutes there on Thursday, listening to Drinkwitz' radio show at the same time as well. So I had a hectic 30 minutes.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see the program. They must have sold some advertising and needed to drag it out for as long as they did. It reminded me, after reading about it and conversing with you on Twitter or on text messaging about it, it reminded me of the year that the NCAA tournament selection show droned on and on and on before they got to the bracket. And that was the one and only time that happened because fans were furious that it took them so long to get to the bracket. But a nice little win for the Tigers to, as you said, to play that the bragging rights game in Columbia. Does this mean it goes to Champaign the next year, or does it go back to St. Louis?
Yeah, so it'll be back in St. Louis next year. It's just like a one-time thing, which is I think is cool,
Yeah. And look, how else were you going to do it? I mean, they agreed to play. Both teams want this game to happen. Coin flip seemed like the best way to do it. And I'll share a story with you. I was involved in a coin flip for something that involved college basketball. This was back in the early '90s, and the Big 8 tournament was at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, and there was I can't remember the teams involved. I can remember one of the teams involved was Oklahoma, but there was a tie in the standings, and the tiebreaker. All the tiebreaker rules did not break the tie until it came to the final one, which was a coin flip, and so. So an athletic representative from Oklahoma, and I cannot remember the other team, came down to the Kansas City Star's office with a Big 8 assistant commissioner, and I had to be the official witness for the coin flip.
Awesome.
That was held in the office there for seeding in the conference tournament. So they can be very dramatic, these coin flips. So. Hey, so also some other news in Missouri hoops this week that the preseason all-conference team came out and the predicted order of finish in the SEC. I don't know if Missouri fans were thrilled about where the coach. It's coaches poll, right? Not media.
No, it was media poll. So I voted for that.
Thank you very much. So media poll, I'm not sure where the Tigers fans would be thrilled about that. But listen, I think if you're a coach and you're picked lower than you think the talent warrants, you've got a motivator for your team. So Missouri was picked to 10th. Is that right?
Yep, 10th. Yep.
Okay, and they finished. They would have been the 10th seed in the SEC tournament last season. I know they weren't 11 through 14.
Yeah. So they were right at 10th. They had to have like 3 things go their way, and I had to map it out. But yeah, they were 10th last year as well. So
okay,
kind of a rough thing.
Easy way out for you lazy media types. We'll just put them where they finished last year. Whatever. But Drew Smith picked up a nice little honor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Drew Smith was named second team All SEC. He was actually on my ballot when I submitted it. I thought Mizzou probably with all their seniors and talent, I thought they deserved at least one spot, and I actually had them sixth in my SEC media poll, which might have been a little bit higher than some of my colleagues. But yeah, and I really think Drew was Mizzou's best player last year. Very, every time I watched him, I always thought that he did a little bit of everything. I think he would be able to do even more of a little bit of everything this year just because of supporting cast. So I think he's going to have an even better year. Perhaps the scoring might go down, but I think just everything else he brings to the table is going to look good. But yeah, Blair, like you said, 10th I don't think is where Mizzou fans want to be. At the same time, though, the media poll was very wrong last year, picking Mizzou 13th out of 14. So, if they finish, if they have a similar type of, I guess, improvement or compared to external expectations, they'd finish 7th. So I think that's right around where Mizzou, I think, will end up. Perhaps maybe a little bit better as I thought, but I just think with the amount of seniors you have and the experience and I think Conzo has mentioned this too, but just the type of experience when it comes to being able to fill in for injuries and kind of adjusting on the fly, I think is going to be very important in a COVID year where, you might lose a player for 2 or 3 weeks just because of the virus and there's going to be a lot of adjustments. So who knows if we'll get the whole season in, but that's currently how I feel about Mizzou at least.
Yeah, and so their first game, November 25th, at home against Oral Roberts. Only a handful of non-conference games. The bragging rights game is December 12th against the Illini. Is the schedule complete? I think we have to expect some adjustments and some flexibility with scheduling. But are there possibility of adding any more games for Mizzou?
Yeah, so Conzo on Wednesday when we spoke to him for early signing day, he essentially Mizzou is set to play in Connecticut at Mohegan Sun against Oregon and Boston College. It's pretty much just you gotta finalize it and sign some contracts and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much done. I think both you get a not Power 5. This isn't football. You got a high major team in Boston College, obviously, and Oregon is ranked. So I think you look at those two teams and add Illinois. You're looking at a pretty good non-conference scale. Obviously, less teams than normal, and you don't get KU, which is over here at the KC Star. That's a bummer, but yeah. So, but otherwise, they're probably not going to add too many games though, unless something happens or somebody drops at this point.
Okay. Hey, also, this was signing date this week for college basketball, and 5-man class for the Tigers. I didn't see any knockout signings, right? No top 50 guys, but it looked like a solid class. I don't know what the ratings were, but what's your kind of synopsis of Missouri's 2021 basketball signing class?
Yeah, they finished 39th in both Rivals and 247 Sports recruiting rankings nationwide. I think it's interesting because I was reading a few maybe SEC basketball recruiting articles, and they really had Mizzou in the bottom half, and I think that's kind of where Mizzou fans and Collins probably expected them. But at the same time, though, it's interesting, Blair. I wrote this article about a month and a half ago about how Conzo doesn't look at recruiting rankings, and he really bases it off it's just based off of what he does. And I just it's too early maybe to judge these kids, and it really sounds like I talked to a few of them, and it really sounds like they were kind of under recruited. And they have, like Caleb Brown, Kobe Brown's younger brother, like he had other Power 5 offers like West Virginia, Minnesota. And you look at a guy like Sean Dewar Gordon coming out of New York, like those guys were recruited by other, high major programs, but it's just kind of like, this is kind of interesting. So yeah, I don't think it'll necessarily reflect in the rankings, which might frustrate Mizzou fans, but I think this is a good class. I really think this is kind of your core going forwards, because who knows what happens with your seniors and if they come back with the NCAA freezing eligibility. But beyond next season and the next 4 years, really, these 5 guys are probably going to stick around pending transfers and attrition. But that's kind of looking like kind of maybe the foundation of your program going forward. So it's a big one. We'll see. I think Mizzou really needs to hit on at least a few, game changers or at least solid role players. So who knows? Maybe we'll be back here in 2-3 years and kind of judge them then.
There you go. That's what I always say. And never a bad thing when you sign Missouri kids. He's got St. Louis and Springfield represented in this class as well. No Kansas City, but Missouri kids, and that's one of the supposedly one of the strengths of Conzo Martin, who's from East St. Louis, Illinois. To be able to recruit the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
Trying to Kita, is that how? Yeah, is it Kieta or how does he pronounce it?
I believe it's Keita. Don't quote me on that, just
Okay.
because I haven't spoken quite to him yet. Though I do sympathize with folks who have maybe different names in English.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Okay, he's from St. Louis and Trevon Brazil from Kickapoo in Springfield. So, all right, Souichi, thanks so much for the catch up with on Missouri sports, and hopefully you'll get to see a college football game sometime in the near future. And here's hoping that Missouri gets to play the rest of their games. We're in a tough patch for the pandemic right now, and like I said, there have been more college football games called off this weekend than any weekend of the season, including 4 in the SEC. So we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, thanks, Blair.
That'll do it for today and this week on SportsBeat KC. Thanks to our outstanding production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. A tip of the cap to Souichi Terada for stopping by and talking Mizzou. His stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Hey, we have another deal for you, especially for those who want to deep dive into the Stars' terrific Chiefs coverage. For a limited time, you can subscribe to Sports Pass for 99 cents a month. That's right, 99 pennies a month. After 3 months, it auto-renews at $5.99 a month unless you tell us to cancel. How do you get it? You go to kansascity.com/SportsPass2020. That's kansascity.com/SportsPass2020. Do you want more than just sports coverage? I know I do. Check out the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, and analysis, the whole thing. You get all the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage that comes with the e-edition. The details for all of these deals can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And I know that's a lot of dots and dashes. Sounds like Morse code, but if you're having trouble hunting down any of these offers, send me an email at bkerkhoff@kcstar.com and I'll get you to the right place. Whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Monday with another episode.